Yeah, for sure. I went to my first IndyCar race a couple years ago in Nashville. It was the very first one they had, and I met some big names when I was there. Like I did have a coincidental meeting with Penske, who happened to be on a golf cart when I was passing by him, you know, got a picture with him, and then I got to meet Little Al and
Yeah.
then some of the Trans Am competitors. It was a lot of fun.
So is that so? I raced in the first Nashville race. Are you going back to 2002, or are you talking about did they go start going back there again recently? I can't even. I
It
don't. I
was
don't.
2021, the Music City
Okay.
Grand Prix.
Oh, was that is it a street race or was it the cement
It was
oval?
a straight race.
Okay. Yeah. So we went to Nashville back in 2002, and they built an oval and it was cement, which is kind of cool, like Dover Downs or whatever. That was also really cool. We went there in 1999. And had a I was racing against same guys, Roger Penske back in 2002 when I was driving for Larry Cahill. But the Penske cars were out there, and I think they were still I don't they didn't have Marlboro on them, but they still had the cool orange and white paint.
Yeah, for sure. That's the iconic type of car for Penske, I'd say, the red and white ones.
They were cool. I mean, and it just every time I think of those and I think of Indy, I remember the time they didn't qualify, which just goes to show how incredibly challenging and interesting and different and special the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is. And when you're driving for Penske, who's spending more money than anybody, um, and as Little Al, he said, you just don't know what Indy means because you can be in the absolute best scenario and not qualify. And I sat there. We got bumped one year, and it was because of a big accident when I hit that safer barrier. And it's about the worst feeling in the world. And I saw Graham Rahal. Unfortunately, it happens to everybody. Usually drivers that are on lower budget teams. But when it happens to a guy like Graham Rahal, it gets a lot of attention. You know, the way it happened this year, it's brutal. It's disheartening as hell, and it makes you really appreciate qualifying for that race because you go up to Indy and it's not one race, it's two races. You got to get in the damn thing before you start racing. So most of the time you're just working on getting into it. And there's nothing more scary. And I say that as I aged and got smarter than qualifying in Indy because you're absolutely on the edge. The race is easy compared to the qualifying. Qualifying, you're hanging it out there, and one little misstep and you're in the wall. And as someone who's been in the wall at Indy before, it is not a pleasant experience.
Definitely not. So, I was wondering, what's your favorite racing movie?
Favorite racing movie? Well, from a movie standpoint, in terms of just non-realistic, is I probably have to go with Days of Thunder just because it's funny. There's some good parts in it. There was that Sylvester Stallone Champ Car one where they were shooting pennies or quarters with the wheels. That was just that was absurd. That one wasn't any level of realism. I really liked Rush with the James Hunt and Nicky Lauda, and I also really like Ford versus Ferrari in terms of accuracy and realism. Most of them, I'm my I mean, my favorite movie and my favorite thing ever is military fighter jets. I'm a huge aviation fan, and I started with Top Gun. I grew up in that era, the first one, and I talk to F-15 pilots or whatever, and they say how inaccurate it is. But watching Top Gun. How do I know? How do I know that? So being involved in racing, you're looking at it and saying, well, that's so inaccurate, whatever. But they've had some great movies. What's your favorite racing movie?
I would have to say Days of Thunder for sure.
Yeah. I also, I mean, well, I'd hardly classify this as a racing movie, but Ricky Bobby and Talladega Nights is quite the laugh, and that's also one of my favorites, but for different reasons than any sort of racing accuracy.
Yeah, Talladega Nights was funny. It's more satirical than realistic.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
Now that you mentioned aviation, which I read about you with, did you ever see Top Gun Maverick last year?
I absolutely did. I saw the opening. It was funny because I showed up at a pre-release it was in St. Louis a couple weeks before it was released for whatever reason, and I was there, and I saw another buddy of mine who I hadn't seen for a while, not for any reason other than we just kind of got busy with family, went separate paths. But he was a guy that used to work for Boeing that was a huge Top Gun fan, and I saw him there, and it's like he looked at me and said, "We've been waiting 36 years for this," which we had 34 or 36, I don't really know, but and I got to say, man, it delivered. It was certainly, I think, a little bit more fictitious than the first one. The first one, I think they tried to make more realistic. This one was had some more Hollywood aspect to it. I think with the whatever that one he was flying at the beginning at Mach 10 or whatever, or hell, who knows? Maybe it's real. I have no idea. But to me, ejecting and kind of landing in a diner, wondering where he was. But man, it delivered. It also was a little bit too much like Star Wars, where you got to shoot the torpedo into the hole, into the exhaust deal or whatever. The mission felt like Star Wars, but again, I don't care. That was one of the coolest movies ever. I've watched it 10 times.
Yeah, it was one of the coolest movies I've seen as well. What was your reaction to the Val Kilmer scene in the new one?
I was very touched. I mean, like as somebody who grew up living my life based on my love for. I mean, I'll just start by saying when I racing cars was not my first choice of a career. I wanted to fly military jets, and unfortunately, you can see I'm wearing glasses now. I had my eyes weren't perfect. It's different now because there's not as many people trying to get in. But at the time, if you went into the Air Force and you didn't have perfect vision, you weren't going to be flying anything. You were going to, have another job, or if you went into the military or the Navy. Um, so, but I still my love for that military aviation, naval aviation, Air Force is so much that movie was iconic for me. So when I saw Val Kilmer, it was a little bit emotional because I think he really is. I think he's still alive, but I think he's very. He was sick in real life, and it was it was really neat actually. And the fact that they were able to keep that relationship, albeit 30 something years later, and he didn't even have to say anything because he didn't in the movie, but you felt it all and you knew it all. So it was cool. I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, definitely. And you're correct. Yeah, Val Kilmer was sick for a while. He had throat cancer and it cost him his voice.
Yeah, he's still alive, right?
He is, yeah, but he now speaks with the device
Okay.
and he has a feeding tube in his neck, I think.
Yeah, I know he's not. Yeah, I knew he wasn't well. So putting the aspect that he came back to make that movie while enduring that stuff. I mean, it was a very cool scene, short, and he didn't even have to speak because you felt it.
Yeah. And that's the reason why he typed "it's time to let go" on the computer. He couldn't say it.
Yeah. Yep.
Operation.
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, so what are your hopes for the future, racing wise or family wise?
Well, I live a very different life than I did back then. I go to work go to work most days. I'm in the insurance business, which is what my father was in before me. I work with large land developers and contractors, and put together large risk management and insurance programs. And it's been, we've had great success. I think a lot of the success comes from my willingness and desire to compete and be the best. And that's from coming from a previous career where you have to compete or you're going to be last. So I do that, and I'm dad every day. I mean, I've got 3 14-year-old kids, triplets, two boys and a girl, and I spend every day figuring out how I can make their life better. And sometimes that's working, but a lot of times more recently, it's they're very heavily involved in sports. My daughter is in tennis and field hockey and golf, and my boys are in baseball and hockey. And between competitive club level hockey and baseball and hockey, I mean, there's not a whole lot of time for much else. So, I'd love to retain my roots in racing and my friends in racing, and I love talking about it. Thank you for having me on here. That's gives me an opportunity to do something very different than what I do on a normal basis. But yeah, I, I, with the kid thing, that's going to be about 3 or 4 more years. They're going to be out of the house in college, and then I'll have time to maybe pick up a hobby. I don't know. So, um, yeah, it's always fun to go back and talk racing. And at some point, maybe one of my kids will want to get in it. At this point, they're so busy with their stick and ball sports, which is safer and cheaper. Um, that's the idea. At some point, they may want to, try to race a little bit. I've had them out at go-kart tracks and stuff, just kind of tinkering around, but nothing serious.
Cool. This is the last thing I have for today. How can your journey impact the world?
I try to, I think the first thing, I focus on, you know, I think that's a great question because, the we have a unique world going on right now. And it's a lot of, a lot of things that are very different than when I was brought up. I mean, so the way that I can impact the world is I really strive for personal excellence. I think there's a lot of and by that I mean free thought, fitness, being healthy. I spend That's one of the things I left out. I spend probably 6 to 7 days a week. I'm in the gym, just working on try to how do I make myself better so I can be an example for my children and for other people around me. And that goes for across the board, not just fitness. It's being smart, understanding things, and just certainly give back to where we can to foundations. I'm a board member on a foundation called the 10-8 Foundation, which is provides we raise funds for police departments and fire departments and search and rescue, all based around canines, because the guys that started it are all into we all have German shepherds and we all love fully trained uh, dogs and stuff. So we got together with a group called Peacemaker, who trains these dogs, and said, how do we started with that, but now we're giving plate carriers and stuff to police departments that are underfunded. And in St. Louis right now, there's quite a few. We've given raised and given over $500,000 to. Started with the St. Louis Fire Department, and then also the North County Co-op, which is just outside St. Louis, where you've just got these first responders that are risking their lives and they don't have the proper equipment. So I like to do that. That's fun. I mean, my goal, like you kind of alluded to, is how do I put my mark, leave this world better than I found it, and that's just to take care of things, take care of people, take care of myself. Try to be an example for others.
That's great to hear. Thank you very much for coming on, man.
Hey, I really appreciate it. Let's do it again sometime if you'll have me.
Yeah, for sure. Down the road, we definitely will have you again. So, yeah.
All
Where
right.
can people find you?
I used to have a website, but that's kind of the thing of the past now. So I'm on Instagram. That's my public page where you'll get to see every now and then I'll post stuff about racing, but that's mainly kind of my daily life. And my Instagram page is Robby, ROBBY, and then you'll get it, but a lot of people don't get it. IRL for Indy Racing League, and then number 5, Robby IRL 5 on Instagram, and that might be where you found me, or Facebook as well. But my Facebook isn't public, so.
All right. So that's all we have for now. And everyone, please hit like and subscribe on the YouTube channel and on anchor.fm. And check out Robby on his Instagram and Facebook. And we'll see you next week for the next episode of SFM.